surface of it. That's what we all visually saw. I mean, Moose, I think there are so many layers to this, and we'll get into whether or not a contested game, a protested game will ever actually happen and like work. It doesn't happen very often. 5 times in the history of the NBA, it's been successful. But Moose, and you grew up playing sports, your boys are playing sports, you watch sports.
Right.
I just don't understand what the Mavericks were doing at the middle of the court.
Yeah, I don't know what they were doing either. I mean, that's the one. First off, I don't think anything's going to change. Do you? I mean,
no. Again, the 5 times in the history of the NBA, a protested contest has been altered.
Right. Plus, the other issue was it was in the third quarter.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other,
right. But Cuban saying it's crazy how those 2 points do matter because we lose by 2, and Mark Cuban went nuts.
But I don't know how the rest of the game does play out. I mean, I just don't understand when you look at it why were the Mavericks on the other side of the court?
I don't know. Like, so timeout called. The only thing I could think of is because they thought it was their ball, that the ball in the NBA on a timeout gets advanced to midcourt. That's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, and then you saw, what Mark Cuban had to say on social media afterwards, saying, for those wondering about the play with 1:54 to go in the third, let me explain what happened. The ref called Mavs ball. The announcer announced it. There was a timeout. During that timeout, the official changed the call, never told us. Then when they saw us line up as if it was our ball, he just gave the ball to the Warriors, never said a word to us. They got an easy basket. Crazy that it would matter in a 2-point game. Worst officiating non-call mistake possibly in the history of the NBA. All they had to do was tell us, and they didn't. Well, here's what I don't understand. And I wasn't, honestly, Keith, I wasn't watching the game live at the time. Usually when they make a call on the court and then they review it or make a change to that call, there's an announcement, and they usually go to both sides of the bench and tell them. But usually they announce it over the loudspeaker. You see it time and time again, especially when a call gets challenged for possession at the end of the game. Like we've seen all of this before, and you'll see, usually the official will go to the color analyst, whether it be, Van Gundy, Mark Jackson, whatever it might be, and tell them exactly what's going to happen. You've seen it with Reggie Miller as well. We've seen it tons and tons.
Yeah, the announcer takes his headphones off and starts leaning forward like this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. You've seen it so many different times where it hasn't. Now, this is 1:54 left in the third quarter, right? So you still had 14 minutes to go. Here's what I also don't understand. When the officials see the Mavs lined up on the opposite side of the floor, clearly there was miscommunication. Why would they just hand the ball to Golden State and give them an easy dunk?
Yeah. So
that to me makes little to no sense. Like, I don't understand as an official on the court, if the message was not delineated the normal way, why would you then assume that the Mavericks know what they're doing when they're lined up on the opposite side of the court? When the original call was Mavs ball, you change the call. Maybe your change clearly did not get to Dallas's perspective, but yet you give the ball to Golden State and give them an easy basket, and then you have the Mavs challenging or filing a grievance and looking for, this to change. And obviously a game that ended up Golden State's way, 127 to 125.
These are the 3, I'll call them groupings, that deserve the blame on this one, okay? The one that does not, Warriors. Literally, they got handed the ball. They go, all right, I'll just pass it in. We'll take the basket. So put them to the side. Number 1, it's the officiating crew. And from what I was reading, the official that handed the ball over on that side, he's what's called a junior official, which means he's newer on the staff, okay? So as much as I want to blame that dude, that guy, you've got a whole crew with you. You guys can get together, make sure that you get this correct and it's handled right. That's the first grouping that was wrong. The second grouping that you can blame, it's the coaching staff for the Dallas Mavericks. Now listen, you have a head coach His job is not to make sure of that. You've got all these assistant coaches and everybody on your staff. Someone needed to like walk over with their clipboard. Everyone's got a clipboard, right? And you walk over a clipboard, and, but it's our ball, right? No, like they always have to like act like they are so important with their clipboard. So go over and do your due diligence. There's number two, and number three, it's the Mavericks players, like guys, like you see Jaden Hardy. And I can't remember who the other one was in the middle, just standing there putting their arms like this, like maybe go, guys, no, hey, stop. Isn't it our ball? No, God, what is it? I don't know. Like, I watch enough third grade and sixth grade basketball to know that the 7 and 8 year olds and the 11 and 12 year olds seemingly know what they're doing. Why do these 20 something and 30 something year old men that are paid millions and millions of dollars, not just the players, coaches, and the officials, all of these people, like, why can't they figure that out? I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't understand either. I agree with you. I mean, it makes little to no sense when you look at it at the base of it. Yeah, but I mean, I just don't think that anything's going to change.
No, nothing's going to change.
Nothing is going to change. And if you're Mark Cuban, you have every right to be upset. If you're the Dallas Mavericks, you have every right to be upset. We've seen terrible calls. We've seen terrible non-calls in big time spots. We've seen officiating gaffes in big time spots. But do I think all of a sudden now in a regular season game in March that something is drastically going to change in the outcome of the Mavericks and the Warriors? Are they going to go back and they're going to tell them, well, you were right, but there's nothing we necessarily are going to go do about it. I mean, that's the issue you have if you're the Dallas Mavericks, and Golden State finally wins a game on the road. So congratulations to the Golden State Warriors, who've been a terrible road team.
I think it's back-to-back road wins because they beat the Rockets too.
They did, amazingly enough.
I mean, pigs are flying,
Golden State,
popping champagnes like we won a championship ring. So with Mark Cuban filing this protest, also something I wanted to look into. I don't know if you know this, Moose, and I always like to teach people things a little bit about myself. When I went into college, I was planning on being a lawyer. Okay. Uh-oh. That was my plan. I was going pre-law. I was planning on, making oodles and oodles of money just being a lawyer, right? Because that's what 18-year-old Keith Irizarry was dreaming of. And that's how I got introduced into speech and the radio station, blah, 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 blah. And that's how the journey goes from there. But so I wanted to dive into it a little bit further. So the way the protest goes is that the Mavericks have 5 days to officially put the protest in, okay? During that 5 days, which they've already put it in, by the way, they need to provide proof, i.e. evidence that there was a mistake by the officiating crew. From that point, the commissioner then has another 5 days on top of that to rule. So you're talking about 10 days from now. So you're talking about March 30th, 31st. So that's 6. So you're talking about April 4th would be the day that we would actually get a ruling. There's another part to this too, Moose. Do you know that the Mavericks have to pay? Not that it matters. I mean, it may matter to guys like me and you, but they have to actually pay $10,000 in order to file this protest. And assuming that it won't work and they won't rule for the Mavericks, not only do they lose the protest, they also lose that $10,000. They don't get it back.
Really?
Yeah, they only get the $10K back if they're correct.
Well, can't they just pay? Can't they just pay us?
And... I mean, right? I'll take the $10K.
I'll take the $10K.
You and me, we split it 5 and 5. Done.
Yeah, I mean, then we'd be good to go.
Yeah, but I don't know why this story, because listen, it was dumb, and it's not going to change. I mean, well, here's the thing: it will change some things in the West, and we can get into what it does with the ordering of the Western Conference. By the way, you also look at that. You see, from number 4 to number 12 is now only a difference of 3 games.
I did notice that. Yes,
yeah,
I did notice
like
that.
Literally, the Lakers are now at 10. If they were to win like 5 of their next 6, and they have the 3rd easiest schedule in the NBA, they could suddenly find. I don't think it's going to happen, but they could suddenly find themselves at like 4 or 5 in the West.
Right, which is crazy when you think about it. I mean, that's when you're right. 4 through 10. It's less than that. It's 2. Yeah, it's 2.5 games.
Yeah. And then even go to 12. I think 12 is only 3 games back.
Correct.
So, and the Mavericks, they win last night. Let's say they would have won against the Warriors. I think that would have moved them into either 7th or 8th. By losing, they're in 9th, percentage points ahead of the Lakers. And again, if we're talking about the play-in, it's crucial to be at 7 or 8. You don't want to be at 9 or 10 because you have to win twice to get into the real playoffs.
You mentioned look at the Lakers schedule the rest of the way here. I mean, they've got Oklahoma City tomorrow night. Then they play back-to-back games against the Bulls. Then it's Minnesota, Houston, Utah, the Clippers, close out with Phoenix and Utah. That's the rest of the way when you look at the Los Angeles Lakers. So, that is an easy schedule for the Los Angeles Lakers. And we didn't even touch upon it yesterday, Keith, when we didn't hit much upon the NBA, but Paul George suffering the right knee sprain for the Los Angeles Clippers, and he's going to be out weeks now for the LA Clippers. And one of those teams, and we would go back a couple months ago when we were talking about teams out west that could win an NBA title. Talked about the 3 teams that I pinpointed. We went through this exercise. 3 teams that I pinpointed were the Suns, the Clippers, and the Denver Nuggets. And if the Clippers don't have Paul George, they're not winning anything.
No, and he gets reevaluated in 2 to 3 weeks. So It's a knee sprain reevaluated in 2 to 3 weeks. I mean,
and his knee, the way it buckled was ugly.
It did not look good. I know we didn't get into it yesterday, but it did not. I honestly thought this was a tear and he was going to be done for a while. Like that's what
so did I. It looked, and the way that he went down, the way that it buckled, the way that it flexed, inverted. Like I thought Paul George was more than likely done for the year. Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't necessarily think that he was going to be able to come all the way back, but that is not the case. He's going to be able to come back now for the Los Angeles Clippers at some point in time. The question is, by the time he's ready and healthy to play, are the Clippers still playing basketball? That's the big time question.
Such a good point, because 2 to 3 weeks.
So they could easily get eliminated. How about the other night against the Oklahoma City Thunder where, Kawhi Leonard late in the game couldn't even get a shot off.
Lou Dort, baby. Lou Dort.
And Russell Westbrook
in the corner just going like this.
It was man on man against Lou Dort. And you're like, uh-oh, here we go. Kawhi's going to take him, going to hit the big time shot. And he couldn't even get a shot off. He was asking for help, calling the guy over on 2 or 3 different occasions, trying to get the screen. And it could not get Dort off of him. He didn't even get a shot off before time expired. You
want to talk about a fall from grace. Kawhi Leonard has got to be on that list, right? Because he's still talented. But I think I've told you this, Moose. My boys and I, we spend so much time in the car going back and forth to sports. And a lot of times what they like to do with me, and Jody loves it. No, she doesn't. But we do these little drafts. So I'm driving. They're sitting in the back. And they'll be like, all right, we got to draft 6 NBA players and a coach. You want the first pick, second pick, third pick? We do snake, blah, 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 whatever, right? Do you know how many times we do that? And so that's 6 times 3. That's 18 players being drafted, okay? Most of the time, Kawhi Leonard does not get drafted.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't think we're wrong. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy when you think about where he was at one point in time. I mean, Kawhi's had an unbelievable career. He's also now 31, and he barely plays. He's only played, I was looking at the other night, I think it's only like 43, 44 games so far this year for the Los Angeles Clippers. So load management has been a big-time key. Did not end all that well, obviously, in San Antonio. Goes to Toronto as the conquering hero, and then ends up going back home and wanted to play in LA and landed with the Clippers, and he gets up partnering up with Paul George. But you're right, from the landscape, he's disappeared. I mean, at one point in time, you thought about Kawhi Leonard as a certain level, clearly as a top 10 player in the league, a gym rat that Greg Popovich used to talk about all the time down in San Antonio, guy that came into the league as a tremendous defensive player at San Diego State and developed a great offensive game from work ethic and being around guys like Duncan, Ginobili, and Tony Parker down in San Antonio. And not take anything away, but he's gone to the Clippers. He's gone to LA and he's like disappeared.
Yeah.
Like there's, like you were mentioning, the exercise that you and the game that you play that drives Jody crazy with you and your sons, where he's not getting drafted in the top 18. They're not wrong. I mean, you're not wrong when you're looking at the complexion of the NBA. Leonard's not a guy. How many times do we talk about Kawhi Leonard this year during our show right here on the Better Sports Network. We barely discussed him. He's become almost an afterthought. A guy that's averaging, I know averages are up across the National Basketball Association, but a guy that's averaging nearly 24 points per game.
Yeah. All right, so if you were building a team, right, and you had to win for a season, just one season, you need one superstar to start the team off, a star to start the team off with, right? Let's go down the line. Tell me when we get to someone. I'm literally just going by points per game this year, okay? Because points per game has been so much. Tell me when we get to someone that you would clearly take Kawhi over, okay?
Okay.
Embiid. No, right?
No. Yeah. I thought you said stop you when.
My bad. Okay. Embiid, no. Doncic, no. Damian Lillard, no. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, no. Giannis, no. Tatum, no. Mitchell, no. You might say you'll take Kawhi over Kyrie.
I would take Kawhi over Kyrie.
Fair enough. Okay, but I'm just going by points per game.
Yep.
Ja Morant, no. Trae Young, debatable.
Yeah, I'd still I might take Kawhi.
I might too,
but it's debatable.
Debatable. That's 10 players so far. So far we've got eight guys that we would clearly take over him. You take Jaylen Brown over him, wouldn't you?
I would, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think you take Lauri Markkanen over him.
No.
I know he's having a great season. I don't think you take Julius Randle over Kawhi, even though he's having a great season. De'Aaron Fox, you're taking over him.
Yes, you are.
Yep. No DeMar DeRozan, no Zach LaVine, and now we're getting to other all-star guys. Jokic, you're clearly taking over him. Yes. I think Anthony Edwards, you're taking over him, right?
Probably, yes.
Siakam, debatable. Paul George, no. Jalen Brunson, no. Porzingis, no. Butler, no. Green, and I didn't even get to Steph Curry because he's not eligible on points yet. He didn't play enough games. LeBron, you're taking over him. Anthony Davis, you're probably taking over Kawhi, or at least it's debatable. Like, that's a lot of guys you're taking over Kawhi.
Yeah, it is. No question about it. You are. And I think it's kind of and I get the whole idea of load management. I think we've reached it to epic proportions with some guys. I mean, he barely plays.
It's enough already.
I mean, think about it. I mean, he's barely in. He's played 44 games. How many games? We got about 9 games left in the NBA regular season, right? Give or take.
43 and 30. Yeah. Yep.
Right, give or take, right? Right around that number. He's played 44 games.
So he's probably played, 55% of games this year?
I mean, think about that.
That's ridiculous.
That's insane. Like,
that's stupid.
He's barely played. I mean, that's it. Like, and you look at other guys, and I understand the whole idea of playing every day or being available every single night in the NBA, Keith, that's kind of a thing of the past. That was something that you and I grew up with. That's never going to happen. But no. I mean, could you play 70 games? Is it out of the realm of possibility? I mean, you are a basketball player. This is what you do for a living. And injuries, if you're talking about, lack of health or injuries or nursing, but now it's all a matter of like load management, taking care of the athlete, making sure they're ready to fire. The other issue you have is, if you look at the Clippers' record, when they have George and Kawhi Leonard on the court at the same time, they're a very good basketball team. When they don't have either one of them or just one of them, they're not. Yeah. So, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So Los Angeles, and you feel bad for George because he's had a number of injuries, including that grotesque one that he had when he was playing for the United States team, where he suffered the compound fracture and the broken leg and everything, and has come all the way back from that. And it was a guy that was handpicked by Kawhi Leonard to join him in Los Angeles. But I think it runs through it to where, he's gone to the Clippers and the expectation was them to be an NBA champion and trying to put that team together. And they're not there. I mean, and they need to get Paul George back on the court. And I also think Leonard's probably not the same player that he was a few years ago with the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah. And it worked in Toronto, right? Because I think he played, want to say like 67 games that Toronto Raptors NBA run. If you want to look that up really fast.
I'm looking it up right now.
Like, it worked that year, and it has worked in the past. Like, if you tell me that Kawhi is going to end up playing 50 of 82 games for the Clippers, and he's well rested, and he goes on a run where he's, averaging 25 points and grabbing 9 rebounds, and
he played 60 that year.
60. Toronto. All right. So I actually gave him the benefit of that. I gave him more. Yeah. But if you tell me he's going to go on an all-world run, then okay.
My watermark for games is?
I'm going to say second year in the NBA, 77 games.
No, it was his 6th year in the NBA with San Antonio, 74.
What year was
yes.
that? What
16, 17.
championship year? No, not a
No.
championship year. No,
No, he averaged 25.5 points per game. Leonard was amazing that year. I mean, he averaged 25 points per game, 5 rebounds, nearly 4 assists per game. He was fantastic. Nearly 2 steals per game. Was a great defensive player.
I mean, he was defensive player of the year that year too.
Yeah, he was unbelievable that season. But that's his high watermark was 74. Yeah,
if he was always a 74, that's fine. I would take that. Deal with someone losing 8 to 10 games a year.
Then he had the injury season with San Antonio where he played 9 games.
Right.
And then he was off to Toronto, played 60, 57, 52, 44. Think about that, like the games played. I'm trying to think. Okay, so 82, that's 25, 55. In his first 2 years in Los Angeles, he missed 55 games.
Jeez.
I mean, think about that.
And you want to call Anthony
but think
Davis
about this,
close.
like if he goes and plays, say for argument's sake, they got 8 games left, right? I say he plays 52 games this year. He'll have missed in his first 3 years in Los Angeles 85 games. He would have been there 3 years, but in essence, he would have only played 2 seasons. I mean, that's crazy.
Oh my God.
That's insane. That's insane. Like he's missed a third of his games.
That is
in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I mean, that's load management gone crazy. But anyway.
I mean, I guess it's par for the course though for him. Like nothing's changed, right? So at least he stayed consistently inconsistent.
No question about it. But I think when overall, when you look at it for the Clippers, you got to figure out what's going on with Paul George. We'll see exactly. Do you think the NBA makes quick work with the Mavericks here?
Yeah, I think we know something by like tomorrow. I think it'll be. I mean, they might give them a day, but already the head official, the one that comes out and does like the 2-minute report and everything like that, put out a statement, essentially saying that the Mavericks were incorrect. If you watch the video, we actually have video evidence, and it does kind of look like the official points one way and then immediately points the other way. So it looks like he officially like immediately adjusted it. It just something somewhere was lost in translation to Dallas, to the Mavericks.
Yeah, and led to the easy dunk for the Golden State Warriors. You know what we got tonight as well? We got the NCAA tournament.
I'm so excited.
We got the Bettor cast going on the Bettor Sports Network.
Excited.
We got to get into that. Got some NFL news. The Jets making moves as well yesterday to add a little draft collateral to go get
for Rodgers.
Yes, we'll get into that as well. Plenty to chat about Moose and Keith with you. Jim Rue will join us a little bit later on in the program as well. We're getting going on a Thursday right here on the Bettor Sports Network.
Lunch Money with Kyle and Ray. Weekdays at noon Eastern, presented by FantasyGuru.com.
We're talking catchers. And Ray, as we jump into this position, traditionally, this has been a position that you kind of say, well, there's like 2-3 guys and the rest is just junk. And gosh, I'm in a 2-catcher league. How in the hell am I going to fill 2 spots, in this 12-man league? And it's such a struggle after the 8th catcher. Like, fair to say it's different now? I mean, I know it's not great, but it feels like the best catcher pool I've seen in a while, like at least a half decade, in terms of, wow, we've got some hitters, we've got guys, and I know they're not exclusively catchers, and the DH is helping, certainly, but it looks like we're going, 10, 12 deep at least of feeling good about catchers, I think.
I tier the players at positions because I think that's a really good way to look at them. And when you tier players, you're basically putting guys that are likely to produce similar levels of production in the same tier. One guy might be batting average, one guy might be home runs, that kind of a thing, but basically the same end result value-wise. I have 2 guys on the elite tier. I then have 8 guys on the next tier. And then I go all the way to 22 on the 3rd tier, which basically almost gets us to that, 2 catchers in the 24, 12-team league kind of thing. So I agree with you. And I think that even if you look beyond that, there's some names that are outside my top 20 that I could easily see being top 15 catchers this year. So yeah, it's not, wow, but it's good overall. We got some young guys coming in that are dynamic players to help out some of the older guys that are still hanging on. It's better than it has been. I agree with you.
It's actually very young, Ray. And that, I mean, you look at Varsho, Rauschman, William Contreras, Kirk, Melendez, Cal Riley's semi-young, but Keibert Ruiz. And there's still other guys coming up that are in the minors right now. That's, we used to always say all these young catchers, just catch, don't worry about hitting. These are guys are coming up with some skill sets as well.
Yeah, and the game is different now, right? Back in the day, you were an old dude that had no athleticism. You're good at blocking balls, and we hoped you'd pop 15 home runs, right? That was kind of the MO. Now it's different. Now we get more athletic guys. It's not that, you have to be some dumpy, slow guy catching. You can be an athletic player that can play other positions, as you noted. So I think the youngsters are bringing more athleticism, kind of like the tight end position in football, right? It's like there is more athleticism at the tight end spot than there was 25 years ago. I think it's the same way at the catcher spot.
Make bets and follow your fantasy team while you buy, sell, and trade collectibles in real time. Only on Bettor Sports Network.
Let's go. Ho! Ho!
Moose and Keith on Bettor Sports Network.
It is Moose and Keith on the Bettor Sports Network on a Thursday, and the NCAA tournament on Bettorcast tonight starting at 6:30 Eastern Time. Watch the Sweet 16 and compete in our real-time Q&A contest on the Bettor Sports Network app. Watch, play, and win prizes by answering predictive questions about the games, which have fun chatting with our community in real time. Join us at Bettorcast on your Bettor Sports Network app tonight, starting at 6:30 Eastern. You can win a $100 gift card to the bettorsports.com collectible shop to purchase authentic hand-signed items from your favorite athletes. The High Stake Fantasy Football Show and Dynasty Nerds will air on bettorsports.com and on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch at Bettor Network. Happy the NCAA tournament is back, Keith, and I think we've got some really interesting matchups tonight. Obviously, it's great that a couple of them are taking place at the Mecca, and that being Madison Square Garden, where you have Michigan State taking on, obviously, the top seed left in the East region. That be the third seed, Kansas State, the Wildcats of Kansas State, and then Tennessee and Florida Atlantic. I think you got two good ones in the Eastern region, even though, besides Izzo and Michigan State, not exactly household names.
Anytime you give Tom Izzo and Michigan State a couple of days to prepare for somebody, right away you go, okay, Michigan State's going to figure this out. I don't know. There's just something special about this Kansas State team throughout this season. You got a new coach taking over. You were never supposed to be here. You got this kid, Marquise Noel, the diminutive one at like 5'8". He's been dominating. I like K-State in this game. I think you take them plus 1.5, save yourself a little something there rather than going on the money line. I think Kansas State, what fascinates me about them is their three-point defense. It is 13th in America. So if they can withhold and withstand Michigan State anything from outside, which they struggled just about a week ago, I think K-State can win this game, but I'll take them plus 1.5.
Yeah, I'd take K-State plus the 1.5 as well. I'm with you. And it's kind of overcoming. It's one of those things because as we've had time, and Izzo has had time to predict it, everybody and their mother says the same sentiment. We had Tim Doyle on yesterday. You give Izzo 4 days to prepare. How do you not take Michigan State? Michigan State's the 7th seed. They're favored over Kansas State. We know Kansas State is coming from the better conference in the Big 12. We know what is more of a brand program when it comes to the NCAA tournament. That's Michigan State. So it's kind of having to overcome some narratives. But when you look at it and you look at what Kansas State has accomplished this year, I'm with you. I like the Jayhawks plus the 1.5. I really do. And I think they're going to win and not the Jayhawks, the Wildcats plus the 1.5. I like Kansas State to advance to the Elite Eight.
I like them to get to the Final Four. The other early game, the 7:15 tilt, you got Arkansas and UConn. UConn 4-point favorites. The over-under set at 140. Moose, I like the Huskies. I like UConn here. I like them to win. I like them to cover. I think at some point the wheels are coming on. Arkansas did not come out of nowhere, by the way. 3 consecutive Sweet 16s, trying to go to their 3rd consecutive Elite Eight. I'm rolling with UConn, though.
Yeah, Sanogo too much. And how good is Jordan Hawkins?
Yeah.
I mean, you're a basketball dad. You're a basketball player. You know, how good is Jordan Hawkins? He's an unbelievable player for Danny Hurley and the UConn Huskies. The concern you'd have here is when you look at Musselman and you look at Arkansas, And the concern I'd have about Danny Hurley is this: is he going to get tight in the wrong spot? Because that's the criticism of Danny Hurley. Obviously, the son of a coach. We know the great St. Anthony's program before they went, before they went kaput, unfortunately. But his brother Bobby, who's the coach at Arizona State, still, I believe, right?
Just got an extension.
Oh, he just got an extension. Good for Bobby Hurley after Arizona State, because his job was on the line coming into the season. Danny Hurley was a guy that takes over a UConn program, Kevin Ollie, who replaced Jim Calhoun, and has rebuilt it. And they're one of those teams that, despite being a 4 seed, Keith, that everyone talked about them potentially, at least getting to a Final Four, and would not be all that surprised if they won a national championship this year, given the analytics and the way that team plays out. Now, can they be a little bit too reliant on Hawkins at times? For sure. Sanogo down low, foul trouble, Hurley, bad coach in big-time spots. There's been that criticism before in the past, but I agree with you. I like UConn. I like laying the 4 tonight. I have them in my Final Four, so therefore I'm going to be rolling with the Huskies, knocking off the Arkansas Razorbacks.
Give you a few other nuggets there to chew on. How about UConn? 28-2 straight up this year when they hold opponents to 47% or less from the field. So if they can go out there and play defense against Arkansas, I think that's another reason why, another feather in the cap of the Huskies. Yeah, I think UConn's going to win this game. And I know we came into this tournament. You and I were talking about this. Were we scared that the public was finding UConn so sexy and so trendy to go far in the NCAA tournament? You and I both ended up still rolling with them, and we find ourselves in the Sweet 16 with them and hopefully to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, then you get the third game of the night, 9:00 tip at Madison Square Garden after Michigan State, Kansas State goes final, and that be Tennessee and Florida Atlantic. And give the Owls credit. I mean, they are a really good basketball team. They're deep, like the way that they get coached. Obviously, you look at John L. Davis has had himself a tournament, played really, really well against Fairleigh Dickinson. They roll a lot of guards. They don't feel like, and they've played 36 games this year. They've won 33 of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing what Florida Atlantic has been able to do. And now they take on a Tennessee team, Keith, that I have to readily admit, like, I'm stunned they're here. Like, Volunteers, like, losing their lead guard to that torn ACL, being done for the year. Everybody kind of crossed the Volunteers off and saying that they're not going to go anywhere. Their statement game was against the Duke Blue Devils, where they didn't just beat Duke, they manhandled them. And now they go into a game tonight as a 5-point favorite over FAU. Is it overreactionary? I mean, I wouldn't be all that surprised if FAU plays this game within the margin and plays it within the spread. I don't think they're going to beat Tennessee, though, tonight.
Yeah, I think the way to do this one is to look at the way these two teams play offense and the way these two teams play defense, then look at the over-under at 129.5 and say, if a lot of points are not going to be scored, how is one team blowing the other one out? So if we don't believe there's going to be a blowout, then I think the play is FAU +5, +5.5, whatever your book is that you're getting it at. Because I also dive into the Tennessee defense. If you subscribe to, Ken Pom rankings and efficiency rankings and all that, and I do check that out when I'm, considering placing a wager, Tennessee is number 1 in the nation in adjusted defensive efficiency. That's according to Ken Pom. They held opponents under 60 points 5 of the last 7 games. So while their offense is nothing to write home about, their defense is something to write home about. They're number 1 in 3-point percentage defensively. So put all of that together. Unless you're going to tell me that tonight is the night that FAU goes out and just continues, they just bomb away and hit all their threes. I think this is a close game. I think you could toy with the under if you wanted to. I wouldn't be surprised if this game ended up, 60-56. And if you get that, you're under. So there you go.
You like Tennessee to advance?
I do. I like Tennessee to win this game. But I think I'm getting myself a little to take FAU at the +5 or the +5.5. But yeah, I like Tennessee to win tonight's game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would probably take Tennessee to advance, split the baby, and take FAU plus the 5.5 points in the game tonight. Then you get to the matchup later on this evening, Gonzaga and UCLA. And this is one that everybody's been looking forward to. They pinpointed when the brackets came out. Everyone brings up the Adam Morrison crying game a number of years ago. And, two kind of stellar programs when you look at it. When you think about West Coast basketball, what Mark Few's been able to do at Gonzaga, they've gone to 7 or 8 consecutive
Sweet 16s.
Amazing when you look at Gonzaga. I would probably make the argument that you can make the argument they've been the most consistent Division I basketball team over the last decade, given the up and down nature. Now, they haven't won a national championship. They've got the 2 NCAA AA title games, but they have yet to win that. Now they take on a UCLA team that, has gone through a number of different coaching machinations, but Mick Cronin works for the UCLA Bruins, and they've got the experience. And UCLA is one of those teams where could they have lost to Northwestern? Yeah. I mean, they could have lost. That was a really good Northwestern team. Can they lose tonight to Gonzaga? Yeah, I think they can. I mean, at some point, Keith, I don't know when it is, and maybe it's tonight against Gonzaga, but at some point, the loss of Jalen Clark is going to hurt UCLA. You can't take that caliber of player. When he was on the team, you thought about UCLA being a national championship contending team. Now you take him off the team and think that, okay, we'll be fine. We'll be all right. Everything will be okay, especially when the opponents get a little bit more difficult. When you think about UCLA's, lead ahead, if we kind of forecast a little bit, even if they should get past Gonzaga, then does it rear its ugly head against a really, really talented UConn team? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it ends up being in the Final Four and they fall to Houston or Texas or Miami or one of those teams. I don't know, but I get a sneaky suspicion, maybe a little revenge tonight for the Gonzaga Bulldogs, and they find a way to upend the UCLA Bruins.
I'd be worried to pick a side on this one. You've got the best offensive team in America in Gonzaga, scoring almost 87, 88 points per game. You've got the best defensive team, arguably, in college basketball in UCLA. Total opposing forces. You mentioned the loss of Jalen Clark. I think it is important to mention David Singleton as well. Kid from UCLA twisted his ankle right at the end of the game last week in the round of 32. Don't know what his status is. You've got a few other players like Adembona, who has been battling some injuries. Gotta watch that. I think in this one, as much as we look at defense for UCLA, I think the offense is going to be the reason why this game is won. Gun to head, I'd probably take Gonzaga, but I'm not. So if I'm going to make a pick in this game, I'm going to play the over in this game. I'll take the over 145.5. I could see this game being 82 to 79, somewhere in that range. And then we're well over the 150 that we would need.
Yes. Now, if it's a case, if we're getting into that, does that favor Gonzaga then?
Yes. That's why. So cards on table. Last night, I was crunching my numbers and I was doing all this, and I'm sitting in bed. And what I did on my sheet was I color code stuff. Okay. So I color code stuff that I'm really happy, really excited about, that I want to make sure that I give out as a pick for myself. I'll do that's bright red. Then I'll do either maroon or blue for things that I'm leaning towards. Okay. And then I can do greens for things that I don't like as much. Last night, I had UCLA money line as blue, which meant I was leaning UCLA money line, but I didn't know if that was going to be my pick. This morning, when I went over things a little bit more, I removed the color from UCLA and just kept it there in general. I think I'm leaning Gonzaga, but I can't pick this game. I'm struggling back and forth. So I'm going to, and I think that's a good test for all you gamblers out there, right? You don't have to place the bet because last night you thought one thing, today you think another. You're allowed to just watch a game. You don't have to bet on said game.
Well, no doubt. You should only bet things you like, and the whole idea, the mantra, well, sometimes, it makes the game a little bit more interesting for sure. I don't know if you necessarily need to bet this game to be interested in Gonzaga and UCLA. I really don't. I think it's the kind of the cherry on the top of what should be hopefully a good night of college basketball, but it's the sexiest matchup of the 4 Sweet 16 matchups later on tonight. And I think it comes down to me is I lean Gonzaga in the game like you, but I don't love Gonzaga tonight against UCLA. I don't it's clearly a toss-up game. Either team could win. If we're on the air Friday tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and the Bruins are playing, UConn or Arkansas on Saturday for a chance to go to the Final Four, would I be surprised? I would not.
No.
Like I would not. And the thing that concerns you about Gonzaga is, okay, lack of defense or the fact that they're so offensive minded. Which team has got and I would think it would probably be UCLA, has got the veteran experience to be able to tempo the game. UCLA, if they try to run with Gonzaga, is going to get run off the floor. They need to play that tempo. It's one of these tempo games. Which team for the majority of the game is able to play the game at their pace and their style ends up, I think, being victorious. I think Gonzaga can find a way to be able to tempo. I do think the Jalen Clark injury at some point, and maybe it's tonight against a really offensive team, comes back to hurt the UCLA Bruins. I do think sometimes when you have a little bit of a revenge on your mind for the Gonzaga program. I know none of those guys are on the team still. We're going back well over
seen the videos, though.
We've all seen the videos. I don't know. I'm getting a sense Gonzaga wins tonight. Don't love the game. Wouldn't bet the game. If you're asking me the games I love tonight, like I like FAU plus the points a lot more than Gonzaga. I like UConn laying the points, and I'm with Keith. With Keith, I think probably my best play of the night is I really do. I do really like Kansas State plus the 1.5 against Michigan State, the first game of the night at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. Keontae Johnson, the whole story of him and Noel and a new coach and not supposed to be here. I love them. By the way, just one other thing about Gonzaga that has aided them through this year. It's been all about health for them. Do you know that they've had the same starting lineup 34 games this year?
That's amazing.
Doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't. I mean, we'll be talking about Creighton and Princeton tomorrow night. I mean, Creighton's dealt with all kinds of injuries throughout the course of the year. A team that was in the top 10 to start the season, then fell out. Now they're back and healthy again. When you look at that Creighton team where, a lot of people are thinking, and they're a heavy favorite to knock off Princeton to get themselves to the Elite Eight. So, yes.
So let me pick your betting brain here because Baby J's put in there on FanDuel, Kansas State on the money line. They're even money. Do you like the idea of the plus 1.5 and minus 110 to get yourself a little bit of wiggle room in case Michigan State hits a buzzer beater at the end of the game and wins by 1? Then you win no matter what, but you're giving up 10 cents essentially. Or do you roll with Kansas State because the spread is so short at 1.5 that if they win, they're probably – I mean, that's the problem. Kansas, like Michigan State could win that game by 1, and if you had the plus 1.5, at least you win.
You're right. They could. I would probably –
You think you just go money line, even money?
Just go money line.
Yeah.
I don't know. You make but like we've seen, but we could – like we've all been part of bad beats. Maybe just take Kansas State plus the 1.5 and just
for the 10 cents. I think I'm going to do that.
Yeah, just save yourself that way if
frustration.
Just in case something crazy happens at the end of the game to where you're covered, getting the 1.5. Like you mentioned, Michigan State down 1, hits a buzzer beater to win it, and then you still win your bet, even though Kansas State gets eliminated from the tournament. Yeah, probably.
Right.
I'm not the most intelligent bettor of all time, though, but probably you're right.
That's awesome.
You might be right. You might be right. You probably talked me into that one. That's probably a good one.
If you were going to do a parlay tonight, so you would take Kansas State plus 1.5. You would take UConn. It's now 3.5.
Yeah.
You would take FAU moved to 4.5 plus 4.5 now.
Yeah, I like them better at 5.
I love them at 5, and I was ecstatic about them at 5.5.
I don't know if I love FAU plus 4.5.
Let's. I'm going to build something really fast. Let's do this together again.
What about we do Tennessee money line?
That's what I was just thinking.
Okay.
So if you did Kansas State plus 1.5, I gotta hold on. I had a bet in here that I never put in. Look at that. I'm deleting that. I don't like it anyway. All right. Sometimes I just toy with things just to see what numbers become. So let's go Kansas State plus 1.5.
Yeah.
We're going to go UConn money line, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to go Tennessee money line.
Yes.
And will it allow me to put the over 145.5 in the parlay? It does. So if we don't want to pick a side in Gonzaga game, we want to go Kansas State plus 1.5, Connecticut money line, Tennessee money line, and then the total goes over 145.5, and Gonzaga UCLA gets us almost 7-1 odds, plus 690.
I like that.
Right?
That's a good bet.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
All right. So, $10 to make you almost $70.
I like that. That's a
There you
good
go.
play.
Let's put that out. Like, let's call that the Thursday sweet parlay of the day.
All right. So we got K-State
plus 1.5. Connecticut money line.
Right. UConn.
Tennessee money line. Gonzaga UCLA goes over 145.5. Plus 690 FanDuel.
What is that? 145.5?
145.5, yeah.
And plus 690?
Gets us to plus 690.
Okay. Cool. I'm in.
Yeah, and remember, like a lot of these websites right now, a lot of these apps, they've got boosts going on. They've got the no sweat bets and all that kind of stuff. There's, bracket parlay insurances and stuff like that. So make sure you're paying attention to that and see, you can go on here, you can look, you can see. Let's see, are there any boosts tonight? Wow, that's a cool one. FanDuel has a boost. Kansas State and Tennessee both win plus 250. That's a good one too.
That's a good one. That is a good one. I like that.
I'm gonna have to revisit all this stuff. There you go. So let's it's Tennessee on the money line. Yes. So we're gonna Moose. Good job. I know you send that over to Ernie and then behind the scenes. Let's tweet that out. And let's call that the Moose and Keith Sweet 16 parlay of the day.
I like that. We'll come up with one tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll do one too.
Gonzaga UCLA. I like the matchups tomorrow night a little bit more than tonight overall.
Yeah,
just because the Princeton story is a really cool story.
Yeah, but the San Diego State game scares me because everything that I'm reading tells, because obviously I'm rooting for Alabama because I have them going far in every bracket.
Telling you to take San Diego State.
Yep, exactly.
If San Diego State beats Alabama,
can you imagine Kawhi Leonard would be there in attendance?
Oh yeah, you'd be attending there instead of a Clippers game.
He'll do that laugh that he does. That laugh that he does.
It's one of those things where you're just not surprised. One of those things where it's surprising that came out from Kawhi.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. All right, so Baby J is in on that bet. I think I may end up putting that one in too. I like that one. It's all stuff that I'm also kind of rooting for too. So
yes, for sure.
Nice.
Let's talk a little NFL because we're gonna have a guest, Sam Quinn, CBS covers, and from CBS he covers the NBA. He's gonna join Keith and I coming your way at 11 o'clock. A couple NFL things before we take another timeout, Keith, and that is Jets made a couple moves yesterday. I was surprised by the one that they made with the Cleveland Browns. And I'll tell you why. Now, listen, I know Elijah Moore 2 years in, very, very uneven 2 years, right? No doubt his talent. We know A.J. Brown's a big fan of his, value in him when they drafted him in the second round a couple of drafts ago. But they trade Elijah Moore in a third-round pick. I believe it was 74th overall. And they get the Cleveland Browns' second draft choice in the upcoming draft, which is, I think, the 42nd overall selection.
Yeah,
right?
So they have the back-to-back picks.
They have back-to-back picks in the upcoming draft. Obviously, they're adding draft collateral, potentially with a move with the Green Bay Packers to go get Aaron Rodgers. Now, they couple that, and before they make that trade of Elijah Moore, they signed Mecole Hardman from the Kansas City Chiefs, a free agent, 1-year deal, could be worth north of $6.5 million, I believe. Hardman's coming off a core injury. He had surgery about a month ago. Productive. I mean, you think about during his time in Kansas City, he had 16 touchdowns over
when he's on the field.
When he's been on the field in 55 or 56 games with Kansas City, over 2,000 yards receiving, 16 touchdowns, added 2 or 3 on the ground as well. Hardman's one of those guys that's got speed, right? And you throw him into the lineup for the Jets. Do you like what Joe Douglas and the Jets did yesterday? Just from, if we look at it, do you think they got enough for Elijah Moore?
I think it mattered. So this is just unless they're screwing this up, and I know it's the Jets, so they may be screwing this up. This is all about down the road, right? So in order you get rid of Elijah Moore, and you probably didn't get enough for him, but you've got enough to be able to add what you need to get Aaron Rodgers. Now you're getting more money off, like Elijah Moore, off the books. From everything I'm reading, if you read the tea leaves, Odell Beckham Jr. knows he's not getting $20 million a year, knows he's not getting $15 million a year. This is setting up for the Jets to offer him like a $9 million contract with crazy amounts of incentives. I was actually talking to the boys about this before they both left for school this morning. Well, how would that work? I'm like, all right, so let's say you offer Odell Beckham Jr., I don't know, 2 years, $25 million, $9 million guaranteed, or $11 million guaranteed, whatever the number is, with incentives of, if you get to 50 catches, an extra million, 75, an extra, dot. It's setting up that you're going to end up with Rodgers, you're going to end up with Odell, you're going to end up with the guys you already have in Wilson, Lazard, and McCall Hardman, and you have a pretty potent potential offense.
You do. The scary thing is like, is Wilson going to get buried here?
I hope not.
Is it not setting up for the guy that was the offensive rookie of the year in the National Football League, in Garrett Wilson? Are you not burying him? I mean, you mean to tell me like Hardman's going to be a guy you're going to be able to use in a myriad of different ways. Lazard's like the warm blanket on a cold night for Aaron Rodgers because they played together in Green Bay. And then you throw in the personality of Odell Beckham Jr. Like, are you not basically diminishing the impact of what we all look to be a burgeoning star receiver in the NFL in Garrett Wilson?
Let me ask you, I'm going to answer your question with a question, which is terrible, but I'm going to do it anyway. What's more important for the Jets this year? Garrett Wilson to go for 1,200 receiving yards, couple of touchdowns, and be a Pro Bowler, or Aaron Rodgers to be happy?
No, Rodgers to be happy for sure.
And that's why. And that's why you do this, right? Like,
no, I get it. I just feel bad. I mean, don't you, like, you look at it, we all see you're going to diminish the impact of Wilson. And then I also worry a little bit about personalities too. Like I do worry about Odell in New York with the Jets and with Rodgers if it starts to not go well. Like if
right, because it was going well in LA with the Rams. You're right. Like there was never a hiccup.
There was never a hiccup. It started to go badly in Cleveland, right? And then you had, was it not Odell's dad or family member that was tweeting out photos of the all 22 where Beckham was wide open and Mayfield wasn't seeing them, like all of those things, saying, don't blame my son or don't blame, Odell. It's not his problem. He can't throw himself the football. He didn't exactly say that, but you get the point. Like that would be my concern as well if I'm the Jets. You're right. You're not wrong. You're doing anything you can to appease Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers wants to play with Odell Beckham Jr. Now, if it goes great, then it's going to be an unbelievable season. If it goes wrong and it goes south, then it could be like a daytime soap opera.
I think Garrett Wilson's still the number one there. Allen Lazard has never had more than 60 catches in a season. That was last year, 788 yards, 6 touchdowns. We know he's a touchdown guy, right? So if Lazard, you said the warm blanket thing, he's your warm blanket in the red zone. Inside the 20, inside the 10, he's your guy. I think you're looking at a similar season from Lazard. 55 to 65 catches, 650 to 800 receiving yards. You got a guy like Garrett Wilson who caught 83 catches, had 83 catches last year with you throwing him the football most of the season, Moose. He's going to get to that number probably again. He just might not get the yardage again. It might not be 1,100. Maybe it's 1,000. Maybe it's 1,050, whatever it is, and just a couple of touchdowns. And then the Odell targets. Listen, I kind of think it's a slow play for him anyway. This is a slow build. If you're Odell, wherever you're choosing to go or whomever is choosing to take you, you're only going there because you think that team can win a Super Bowl. You're not winning a Super Bowl in week 2, right?
That's
so Odell
true.
needs to be healthy in week 14, in week 17, and then in the playoffs.
Well, and someone could be like, "Hey, Moose, stupid. Like Odell hasn't played football in a long time, right? So it's been a while since we've seen him. He was off this past entire year. It might, to play the Keith's point, like it might take him a while in order to build himself up and get him ready. And you want him down the stretch, similar to what teams were talking about this past year when they wanted to bring Odell Beckham Jr. aboard because they were looking at him to help them out in the stretch run. Listen, there's no denying if you have a quartet of receivers of Mecole Hardman, Odell Beckham Jr., Garrett Wilson, and Allen and Lazard, it's ridiculous.
I mean, you could make an argument that of wide receiver rooms, you can make an argument that might be the best one in the NFL. Wide receiver rooms. They don't have the star.
No, they don't have the star, right? Of wide receiver rooms, you could.
It's going to be up there.
I think anybody that's a Dolphin fan would probably stomp their feet and say, listen, we've got Waddle and Tyreek Hill.
But after that, who do you have?
No, right, correct. But do those two
supersede the 4?
Correct.
Probably.
Yeah,
probably.
I would probably say they do because they're just.
I mean, Buffalo would argue that their duo.
I would not. I would take the Jets over the Bills.
Me too.
Even though I love Diggs.
I
think Wilson's got a chance to be.
So do I. The Bengals. I'm sorry. Cincinnati would supersede them.
Cincinnati's got a really good room as well.
Yeah, because they got a top 3.
Yeah, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and
Tyler Boyd.
Yeah. But, that would be, Aaron Rodgers, think about that. You had an organization that wouldn't draft a wide receiver for you. Now, all of a sudden, you go to the Jets and you have that quartet, Lazard, Wilson, Mecole Hardman, and Odell Beckham Jr.
And every receiver
that's crazy.
Does something different and does something well, right? Like we talked.
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson can stretch the field, also has amazing hands and precise route runner. Allen Lazard, security blanket, like you mentioned, great touchdown guy. Odell Beckham Jr., when he's OBJ, fast, strong hands, and Mecole Hardman, the arguably, but like besides Tyreek Hill, like the number one gadget wide receiver that you could just every screen pass he catches might be a touchdown.
It's been ridiculously quiet though on the Rodgers front too.
Really weird.
Strange.
I've had neighbors asking me, is this going to happen? Or
no, it's going to happen.
And I keep that's my response. It's going to happen.
I don't know when it's going to happen. We'll wake up one day and it'll just be like, today's the day.
Is it going to happen before or after the draft?
Before.
It has to, right?
I think so.
Because the Packers are going to let's say that those two. Let's say
I think one of those second round picks is going to Green Bay,
and they're going to want to be able to draft who they want to draft.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people around Green Bay believe Corey Davis is going to be part of the deal.
If you're the Jets, fine.
For Green Bay, for financial purposes.
Denzel Mims still on the Jets roster?
He is.
He
really Mims has got to be a guy. Mims, if they had Odell back, Mims has got to be get me the hell out of here. I don't know. Just trade me someplace else. Let me go. Trade me to Houston.
I was about to say I'd be begging to Houston.
I know.
Please.
I'll be honest with you. I actually like what the Texans are doing this offseason.
Yeah. I think
they've got a long way to go. I'm not telling you they're going to make a massive jump, but it seems like a team that actually has a clue of what they're doing here moving forward. Like their head coaching hire. I like what the Texans are doing here.
Who's their number one wide receiver right now? Who'd they sign? Texans signed somebody.
Oh, I forget who it was.
They have one veteran, and then everyone else is young. I even saw John Mechie now. The hope is that he's going to be able to come back from the injury and be able to be what was expected. Which, by the way, if Bryce Young was the quarterback in Houston and Mechie's an Alabama guy,
Robert Woods.
Thank you. Yeah,
thank you.
Bobby Woods, Bobby Trees.
Let's talk a little association. Sam Quinn is going to join us next from CBS. Talk a little bit about everything going on with the Mavericks and Warriors game last night. MVP race. A lot to get into with Sam. It's Moose and Keith with you on a Thursday right here, Bettor Sports Network.
Talk sports with Lisa Ann and Rick Kamla, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Bettor Sports Network.
Let me say something about Tiger. Tiger has had to redesign his entire swing. Tiger has a difference in the length of his legs because of that horrible accident. In golf, there's no hey, you can't walk the greens. You have to take a cart. So I assumed by day 3 on Sunday, the inflammation would start. He took a couple breaks where they take care of his back a little bit. But it is fascinating watching him. So it gave me this thought, is he that skilled at golf? or is this a mental thing of dedication and determination? He is so dedicated to the sport that no matter what, he's relentless to it. And the dedication and determination goes to the golf, the swing, the playing, the walking, but it goes to his overall health. The average person who doesn't stay in great shape, gets in an accident like that, goes through multiple surgeries, is not recovering and going out there to walk. And that course has some pretty steep inclines, a lot of walking. I mean, how else can you factor these athletes, the Michael Jordans, the LeBrons, these players that just, their whole focus is really optimal health, optimal body skills, optimal. And then what comes next is being the best at what they do.
I think you just hit on why Tiger still has that drive. I don't know this. I don't know the man. It could just be love of the game. It could be, I want to make as much money as I can while playing. Could be all this stuff. But LA, a lot of people think Tiger Woods is the GOAT of golf. And I don't understand how you can be the GOAT of golf when you are 3 majors short of Jack Nicklaus. Okay? So, like LeBron, I don't think he cares what guys like me say anymore, right? He's past Kareem. He thinks he's the GOAT. I mean, he's 3rd on my list. He's in the debate. Many other people think he's the GOAT. He's not my GOAT. You know what I mean? So I wonder if Tiger is there, like LeBron, like, I don't care what the pundits, what the barbershops say. I'm the GOAT. I don't have to do anything more. This is all gravy. I wonder if Tiger looks at it that way.
I don't know what Tiger's mindset is in the GOAT status, but when players talk about what it's like to be at a tournament, when Tiger's playing versus when he's not, they'll tell you that they're on the greens and they can hear the roar 4 holes over, and that there is nothing that compares to the excitement of when he's present.
Bettor Sports Live, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific, exclusively on Bettor Sports Network. Or listen whenever you want on the app with BSN On Demand.
Why you always in the mood? Around like I'm brand new. I ain't trying to tell you what to
Moose and Keith on Bettor Sports Network.
It is. Let's talk a little NBA, shall we? Because we're going to be joined right now by Sam Quinn, covers the association. Good morning, Sam. Mark Malusis, Keith Irizarry with you. We appreciate the time this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here. I mean, definitely plenty to talk about right about now.
Really is. Keith and I, we kicked off the conversation this morning talking about, the Mavericks and Warriors scenario in the third quarter last night, which was I don't think anything's going to go anywhere. Like, they're not all of a sudden going to reverse that game. But strange in that third quarter with 1:54 to go, the lack of communication between the officials on the court and the Mavericks, which led to the easy buck in the dunk for Golden State.
Yeah, nothing's going to come of it. You're right. Like, they're not going to change the outcome of the game or anything. But I'm looking at what happened a couple weeks ago between Denver and Toronto when Fred VanVleet, or it might have been a game afterward, but Fred VanVleet goes after Ben Taylor, who's one of the officials in the NBA, really tears him to shreds. And then all of a sudden, we start to see Ben Taylor demoted. He's not a crew chief as often. So I am starting to wonder, you think about what the NBA was like under David Stern, where Mark Cuban would rack up all of these fines for criticizing the officials, and it was just sort of an understood thing, like, we don't take kindly to that stuff. I wonder if that's starting to change because we're seeing more and more criticism of officials, especially this year. I mean, the Fred VanVleet thing, he got fined, but that's the sort of thing that, like, under David Stern, like, we wouldn't have heard from Fred for a week after that. So I'm just sort of looking at this, and they're not going to change the outcome of the game, but it feels more and more like the officials are becoming the story in the NBA, and that's exactly where the league doesn't want to be. So I'm at kind of at a loss here. How do you handle this? Like, this is the sort of thing, if you're going to file a formal protest and speak out as much as they did, don't get me wrong, it was a very confusing situation, and I'm kind of at a loss as to how it happened. But, man, after what happened with Fred VanVleet and Ben Taylor, I don't really know what the league's response is anymore.
It's a good point by you, too. It almost feels like when a head coach decides to get a technical foul to fire up his team or whatever, right? And that's what the Mavericks are making a point. You referees screwed this up and cost us a potential victory. So with all that, all right, so now you got the Lakers at 10, you got the Mavericks at 9. Mavericks lose last night, obviously drops them out of that 8 spot, which is where they want to go. How do you kind of handicap this West? Because that was something else Moose and I were talking about. From 4 to 12 is now a difference of 3 games.
The spot that I'm really watching is number 6, because I think we can be honest. None of us fear Sacramento and none of us fear Memphis. So say you're Golden State And I know that they won, I think it's 9 road games all year at this point, maybe 8.
Yeah, 2
But
in
if
a
you're
row.
Golden State, is that their first road winning streak of the year? It might
I
be.
believe so.
But if you're Golden State and you go into a series with either Memphis or Sacramento, and then you know the next round we're getting the other one of them or whoever they beat, you're probably feeling pretty good, right? I mean, I think Golden State's been hovering at around plus 500 to win the West. There's a part of me that's sitting here and thinking, if Golden State is 6, I'm going to take that plus 500. I'm going to wait for them to get to the West Finals against whoever comes out of that bloodbath on the other side of the bracket with Phoenix and Denver. And I mean, we'll see if the Clippers are healthy. Maybe the Lakers are number 8. Who knows? But whoever comes out of that side of the bracket, I take Golden State in the before the playoffs at plus 500, and then I hedge it when we get to the West Finals. Now, I know a lot of people are going to look at me and say, "Well, Sam, the Warriors are 38 and 36. They can't win road games." I don't really care all that much about that. The number that I care about with Golden State is plus 145. That's the plus minus their starting lineup of Curry, Thompson, Green, Wiggins, and Looney has when it's on the floor together. That's the second best lineup in all basketball this season. Only Denver's starters have been better, and they've played twice as many minutes. So if you promise me, and don't get me wrong, we don't know this is going to happen, I'm willing to take this risk. If you promise me that Wiggins is going to be back for the playoffs and Gary Payton's going to be healthy, I feel pretty good about Golden State at that plus 500 number.
All right. What else when you look at your NBA futures or champions market, Sam? What else do you like in terms of, let's stay out west and then we can kind of matriculate our way to the Eastern Conference. Who do you put on that line that you think can win the NBA title this year?
I would say there are 3.5 teams that I feel decent about as a championship proposition.
Ooh,
Phoenix is one of them.
3.5. I like
3.5. So Phoenix is one of them. I don't care how many games Durant plays. Kevin Durant is the easiest player in the NBA to fit onto any roster. Phoenix is going to be fine. If you have misgivings about their depth, if you have misgivings about Ayton, I get it. Totally fine. But if you're asking me who I think can win the championship in the West, Phoenix is up there. I'm still feeling relatively good about Denver just because despite the recent struggles, they never lose at home, and they're gonna have home court advantage in every series in the West. So I still feel okay about them. We covered Golden State already. I hate to be this guy. I hate to be the national media guy who talks about the Lakers.
Do it.
I gotta be honest, I wouldn't pick the Lakers against Denver. I wouldn't pick the Lakers against the Suns, and I wouldn't pick the Lakers to stay healthy across, what would it be, 14 wins that they'd need in the West, 2 playing games, 4 series in a row. But that said, you put LeBron and AD, if they're on the court together with this new supporting cast that has more shooting and has more defense, you put them against anybody, you kind of have to feel okay, right? I mean, what are they going at now? I know I got them at plus 2,800. If you're still looking at the Lakers in the plus 15 to plus 20 range, I'm taking that flyer absolutely, just because you could argue that they might have the best player in any series unless they play Phoenix or Golden State. I feel a little bit better about LeBron in a series against Jokic, right? I mean, just given the experience. The health is the concern, don't get me wrong. We saw this 2 years ago when they made the playoffs against Phoenix, and he's coming off a high ankle sprain. He comes back, I think, with 2 games left, and he comes back against Phoenix, and he's not the same. You have that concern, that's fine. The difference is, I believe the Lakers were the West favorite at that point, at least by the odds, or they were among it. If you're getting them at 20-1 or 15-1, something in that range, I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, I dove in on the Lakers to make the playoffs at plus 134. I'm just double checking. It's down to plus 104 now. And for the Lakers to win the West, it is still 2,100, which I got in on that one. How about this? I also toyed around with exact matchup. Lakers to make the finals versus the Bucks, and Lakers to make the finals versus the Celtics. Both of those were 50-1 odds.
I like the Bucks more than I'd like the Celtics. My position on the East.
Truthfully, I took this a month ago, so yeah.
Yeah, okay. My position on the East is pretty straightforward. The Bucks are going to win, but don't bet it right now. What I can promise you about the Milwaukee Bucks, having seen them in the playoffs, what is it now, 4 or 5 years in a row with Budenholzer, they're always going to lose 1 or 2 dumb games at a really inconvenient time, and that's going to change their odds. You look at their championship run. They lose game 1 of their series in the last 3 series, right? They lose game 1 to Atlanta, lose game 1 to Brooklyn, lose game 1 to Phoenix. When they're in the bubble, they lose game 1 to the Orlando Magic. So don't get me wrong. I look at those plus 130 odds for the Bucks and I say, well, I think they're going to win the East. I feel pretty confident that they're going to win the East as long as they're healthy. But I can do better than plus 130. There's going to be a moment where, like, they're playing Philly in the Eastern Conference Finals and they lose one of the first 2 home games, or, they randomly, it's close against Cleveland in the second round, something like that. Middleton has like a ankle tweak or something. You just wait. You're going to get better odds than, I think, whatever it is, plus 130 right now. I take the Bucks. Just watch those odds. There's going to be a moment for it.
Sam, I want to ask you about the Knicks. Now, I'm a realistic Knicks fan, right? Like, I'm not one where I'm like, because I have friends of mine like, hey, Moose, like, they can win an NBA title, or they
people
can.
in our chat saying that.
Yeah, well, they can they can beat Boston. I'm like, they're gonna beat Milwaukee in a series. I'm like, guys, listen, I've grown up around the Knicks. I'm happy they're relevant. I enjoy Brunson. Love Randall. Love what Thibodeau's doing. Josh Hart, kind of an old school Knick dating back to the early 90s. What's a way that I can, from your perspective, Sam, that I could be advantageous with the Knicks and profit from Knicks' success without, going crazy and betting into the NBA championship futures market?
I'd go the other way. I don't get me wrong. I'm optimistic about the Knicks for the long haul, right? Like, I think they're generally moving in the right direction. But when you think about the playoffs, right now it's seeming pretty clear that they're going to end up playing Cleveland in the first round. Remember that first round series against Atlanta 2 years ago when DeAndre Hunter, of all people, turns Julius Randle into a jump shooter. He's terrible. They lose in 5 games. Well, what's he going to do against Evan Mobley, who personally, I think Evan Mobley is probably the best defensive player in the NBA, if not the only guy who I think has been better on a permanent basis this year is Anthony Davis. So I look at that Cleveland Knicks series and I say, the public is going to juice that towards the Knicks, right? Like, the public is going to bet up the Knicks. All you've got to do is wait and then grab Cleveland, and it'll go exactly the way the Atlanta series went. That said, I'm a pessimist about the Knicks in the playoffs this year. I like where they're going. I think they're moving in the right direction. They're moving in such a way that I saw a tweet yesterday. I can't remember who it was from. I think Wintour said it, where, they're thinking maybe we get Damian Lillard and Karl Anthony Towns this offseason. And I thought to myself, why would you do that? That's just like a slight improvement upon Brunson and Randall. They're so good now that they can afford to be picky as they look for superstars, right? If I'm them, I'm looking at this Jaylen Brown situation in Boston and saying, what's the one thing we really need? It's a two-way wing. That's the guy. Or, you watch Philly in the playoffs. If James Harden goes to Houston, Embiid can be our guy. All I'm thinking about the Knicks right now is the long haul. When they get to the first round, I plan to bet on Cleveland. I just don't trust Julius Randle in the playoffs until I see it. But the long haul is still pretty promising. And when you've gotten to a point where you can turn up your nose at Lillard and Downs, it's a pretty good place to be.
My goodness, Knicks fans all across the landscape just heard you mention the name Embiid. That's honestly, I didn't hear anything else you just said, by the way. You just mentioned Embiid as someone that could be available.
I mean, he has deep CAA ties. That's going to be a rumor until the day he retires.
Oh, my God. It would be so great.
I don't want to get people hyped up. I mean, I don't think they're going to win the championship this year.
Sam, can you just hold me? Like when you said that.
That's like,
look,
yeah.
Just hold me.
Let me
like
give all the qualifiers necessary.
Madison Square Garden, just hold me. Like I just want to live in that moment.
Look, this James Harden noise, there's enough smoke that we can say there's probably some fire. If they win the championship, James Harden's going to stay. If James Harden goes back to Houston and you're Joel Embiid, you might start to get a little bit antsy, right? And then there's the CAA stuff where you figure eventually a CAA client is going to find himself on the Knicks. I don't know. Like, it's worth wondering about. I wouldn't think of it as an immediate thing. But sooner or later, somebody is going to look at what's going on in New York and say, that's where I want to be. And given the CAA stuff, given the Harden worries, Embiid is the logical biggest name on that list. There are going to be other guys. I think Jaylen Brown makes sense as well. I think Lillard might try. I don't think Lillard makes sense. But somebody's going to do it eventually, right?
Can you give us more on the Harden situation? Like, what are the? I mean, because you hear rumors, but what are the rumors that you like kind of believe?
When I first heard the Harden Houston stuff, I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard, and
Same
not
here.
from the Harden side. I thought it didn't make sense for Houston, right? I mean, look at the way the Rockets play. They're such a drag to watch most of the time because Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green just will not stop dribbling. Like, the last thing this team needs with these young guys is another guy who's going to dribble. You bring in James Harden, Şengün might never get the ball. Jabari Smith might never improve as a ball handler. So it makes no sense to me. I think they've got like a decent thing going with these young guys. The last thing I want to do is bring in a high usage ball handler. But the more you hear about it, the more it just starts to feel like this wouldn't be a basketball situation, right? This wouldn't be, I'm going to Houston because I think I'm going to win a championship there. This feels like one of those situations where if he's not happy in Philly, and we don't know for sure that he's not, but there's been enough smoke that maybe he prefers the idea of being the biggest guy on the team and getting to run the way the team operates. You know, something that I think a lot of people overlook is just how much day-to-day control the superstars have over the personality of a team. Like, you know, are we going to stay in this city an extra night? What kind of music are we going to play at practice? You know, the stuff like that I think gets really lost. That matters more than I think people think about. If James Harden is thinking, number one, I want to get paid, he's probably thinking that he gave up some money last year to stay in Philly. Now he wants to get paid. No state income tax in Houston. He obviously loves the lifestyle. There's been enough smoke where I remember a year or so ago, or maybe a little bit more at this point, all season we were hearing, you know, James Harden might wind up in Philly. And I thought, that's crazy. Why is he leaving Brooklyn? He's on the championship favorite. Well, then it happened, right? So what I think we should know by this point, if you're hearing stuff about James Harden, there's probably something to it. I don't know that I would predict that he's going to go back to Houston. All I'm saying is if they flame out like they did last year, it's got to be on the table.
Yeah. All right, Sam, want to ask you about and you're great. We're chatting with Sam Quinn from the NBA, covers the NBA from CBS. Sam, let's talk about the NBA MVP market because it's tightened up here. You mentioned Embiid potentially, you know, with his future down in Philadelphia, depending on everything that transpires with Harden. You know, Jokic going into the season, the narrative was, well, just historically speaking, there's no way that he's going to win. There's no way that he's going to win a third straight MVP. Only 3 other players in the history of the NBA have done that. So now you look at, he's overtaken it. He's been utterly brilliant. Now he's faded a little bit. Embiid has jumped back into the conversation. Where are you right now in terms of the MVP race in the NBA?
I've more or less ruled Jokic out, not because I don't think he deserves it. You can just kind of tell where the wind is blowing. It seems like from a narrative perspective, nobody wants to vote for Jokic. I disagree with that. I personally am of the opinion, just because we've made mistakes in the past, we shouldn't keep making those mistakes in the future. This has nothing to do with the 3-time MVP for me. I am going to pick whoever that player is. I'm going to pick the player that I think was the most valuable player of this season without considering any other factors. I don't care about winning 3 in a row. It seems like other people do. It seems like, frankly, the conversation went in some directions that it shouldn't have. But it just seems like you can read which way the wind is blowing. Jokic isn't going to win this thing.
Right.
That leaves us down to 2 guys. My question here is, why has Embiid been so much higher of a favorite from an odds perspective than Giannis? If you look at the stats, they're virtually identical. I believe going into yesterday, they had the same field goal percentage. Embiid averaging 2 more points, Giannis averaging 1.5 more assists. Giannis has a better record. Giannis is a better rebounder. I would argue that Giannis is a better defender. I get that that's subjective. If you look at the 2 Tim Bontemps straw polls, Giannis has finished ahead of Embiid in both of them. Now, they're going to play head-to-head in the next few days. All 3 of the candidates all play each other, and I believe, you know, the next few days, within the next week, I think. So we'll get a better idea then if there's going to be some Heisman moment for one of these guys where he beats the others. Ultimately, I think it's pretty close to a toss-up when you actually think about where the voters are leaning. But if you look at, like, the odds, why am I getting 3-1 on Giannis or 4-1 on Giannis? I think he got up to plus 475 in the last few days. When Embiid is this huge favorite, I don't really understand why. And then the factor that we're really missing here is Chris Middleton's barely played all year. Didn't we just give Jokic the MVP because he was so good without Murray and Porter? Well, why are we ignoring that with Middleton? Chris Middleton has played 27 games all year. He's played 30 minutes 6 times the entire year. I think we've collectively forgotten how good Chris Middleton is. Yeah. This is a guy who was making the big shots in the finals. This was their late-game shot creator on an NBA champion. You know, several-time All-Star. I think the fact that Giannis has them with the best record in the NBA without having had Middleton for most of the year, that should mean a lot more than people are giving it credit for. I think too many people are just looking at these box scores in February and March and saying, oh, Middleton's playing, so, any other Bucks season. No, it's distinctly not any other Bucks season. It's a season where Giannis has them with the best record, despite getting, I think they're at like 700 minutes for Middleton now.
There's voter fatigue, and whether you like it or not, it's a thing, right? Like Jokic getting the third one, he's going to have to do something historic. It looks like he probably won't average the triple-double. You mentioned there are other factors that have now been bandied about amongst the media. I think that so let me ask you this then. What's the storyline? If it's the people voting for this, are they voting for the storyline of Embiid, who was awesome this year, to get his first, or Giannis, who was awesome this year, to get his third?
I do think there has been kind of this push where, Embiid has been so close the last 2 years, which I think is weirdly turned into, Embiid should have won in one of the last years. No, he shouldn't have. Jokic won for a reason. Like, we were all there. Don't get me wrong. That's not me, discrediting Embiid, but he lost for a reason, right? 2 years ago, he lost because he didn't play enough games. And then last year, Jokic won because how did they win, 48, 49 games without their two best teammates? Like, it was pretty clear why Embiid lost those last 2 years. But I do feel like there's the sentiment now, he should have won one of the last two, so let's give him this one. I am sort of looking at this and thinking, if Giannis beats Embiid head-to-head and clinches the number 1 seed when they play in the next, a few days, there's going to be a lot of voters look around and say, what are we doing? Giannis is the best player. Why are we overthinking this? Let's just give it to the best player.
I'm going to
and
ask
if you
you
look at past awards too, how many years did LeBron not win? And then we get to the playoffs and we just realize, LeBron's the best player. What are we doing?
Yeah, he should have won. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, but it's amazing. Like Jokic went from about a month ago, I think he was like minus
500 at some point.
Yeah, it was definitely minus 400 on most books. Yeah, minus 500 on a few, I think.
And now Embiid's minus 150. Like
I'm seeing on Caesars right now minus 250,
right?
Embiid.
Yeah. No, I totally am okay with the idea that Embiid wins. There are 3 viable candidates. I'm not going to argue with anybody who picks any of the 3. Where my issue lies is why is Embiid this minus 250 favorite when you're getting 3-1 or more on Giannis when I think they're a coin flip?
All right, I'm going to ask you a strange one, Sam, and that is a player award because I'm looking to try and get him award. 6th man of the year in the NBA, right? My man IQ, Emmanuel Quickly right now is plus 125. Keith is shaking his head. I'm just such a Nick apologist. I am. I apologize, Sam. Do you think IQ's got a shot to be 6th man of the year this year in the NBA?
Yeah, I think it's a 2-horse race. The thing that I hadn't even considered, but I was looking at this yesterday, something that matters personally to me, I don't know if it'll matter as much to other voters, Quickly has played like 500 more minutes than Brogdon. Even if you think Brogdon has been the better player for the year, it has to matter that the Knicks close with Quickly, that he's clearly somebody that Thibodeau trusts. And the reason he's not starting has nothing to do with the fact that, he's not one of their 5 best players. I'm not convinced that Joe Mazzulla thinks that Brogdon is one of Boston's 5 best players. I get the logic of picking Brogdon. I mean, the shooting efficiency has been crazy. He's given them the ball handling and the playmaking that they've really needed. He's been a real stabilizing force for them all year. But at the end of the day, I look at this Quickly thing and I just think this is what you want a 6th man to be, in that he is very clearly not their 6th best player. I think you could make a compelling argument that Quickly is their 3rd best player. I think he's been better than Barrett pretty comfortably all year. And the reason he's coming off of the bench is that it makes sense from a rotation standpoint, not because, we think Marcus Smart is better than him, or we think Derek White is better than him. So that is something that's going to matter to me. The minutes matter. I don't know that it will as much to voters. I mean, look at the defensive player of the year, right? Like, Jaren Jackson might win defensive player of the year with 1,700 minutes. That doesn't sit well with me, but personally, voters are going to look at that, and they don't seem to mind it as much.
Sam, I'm going to throw you for a loop. Who's winning the national championship?
Can I say my Miami Hurricanes?
You can. Yeah,
My
listen,
alma mater.
hey,
I
will
don't
throw this
actually
out at
believe
you.
that, but
Before the brackets actually came out, and Moose will attest, Miami was one of my sleeper teams. I just didn't love their draw, but I love Miami. Also,
yeah,
maybe
I mean,
because
look,
I met Isaiah Wong a few times and I like the kid. But
I'll be perfectly honest. I am not as much of a college basketball expert as I probably should be, so I'm just going to pick my alma mater and say the University
that's
of
fine,
Miami.
and that's why people win brackets.
Yeah, exactly. Why not?
Sam, so that's one of the schools I got into, Miami. I decided to go to Syracuse, but Miami and Syracuse was kind of like
There's a lot of crossover there. Yeah, a lot of Northeast kids going to Miami and their friends went to Syracuse.
Right. So, but you got it. Like I remember sitting at my dad's house in Blauvelt, New York, right? Rockland County. When I got the acceptance letter and then the pamphlet and the brochure, not the brochure, it was like a book almost about Miami. And just like, they're like, do you want to go to school in paradise? And like, was 4 years at Miami that much fun?
So I'll stress, I did spend 4 years in Miami, but 3 of them were in high school. I only spent 1 year there in college, and then I came back to New York where I grew up to go to NYU. It was a very fun year, and one of the reasons that I left was that if there were 3 more years of that, I don't know if I'd be, let's say, in the same place as an adult that I ultimately ended up.
How about that? It was a very fun year, and if there were 3 more very fun years,
I don't know. I mean, well, listen,
they
you
call
went
it
to NYU.
NYU for a reason, folks. Like, I'm just gonna say, whatever you're expecting, it's pretty close to accurate.
Sam, you're great, man.
That's
we
awesome.
appreciate it. Listen, NYU, that's a big time school as well.
It's the total opposite. I'm just gonna say that. It's a very different school.
Sam just subtly dropped that he's really smart. I don't know if everybody at home.
No doubt. That was like
that.
a massive, like it was like a Hulk Hogan flex. It was like this.
That was like I partied at Miami for a year and then remembered, you know what? I'm really smart. So
what am I doing? You're like, these guys
I
are
was a
morons.
sports management major, fellas. Like, don't look at me like I was at Stern. I was getting an MBA. No. I was there to get ready to work in sports.
Okay.
Sam, thanks for cutting a half hour with us today. You were great talking about the NBA. We appreciate you. Do a great job for CBS. We enjoy your work and continued success. All right,
guys. Thanks for having me. Go Canes.
There you go. The you. The you. It's all about the you. Sam Quinn.
Oh, God.
We're going to talk a little college hoops. Jim Root is going to join us next. Get his thoughts. I got a question I posed to Doyle yesterday that I'm going to pose to him. Who wins tonight and loses on Saturday?
Thank God. I'm glad you weren't going to ask whether or not he was like at a bar with me at some point.
No, but that
wasn't awkward
media.
at all. But
well,
yeah,
you and Doyle are butt cheek to butt cheek.
Apparently, yeah. I don't remember.
Jim Root will join us next. It's Moose and Keith on Thursday right here, Better Sports Network.
Washington Commander fans, it's time to rejoice. The day you've been waiting for seems like it's finally on the way. And you know what day I'm talking about. No, not the next time you have a parade down Constitution Avenue. That's still years away. But the day you get to say goodbye to the man who has owned that franchise since 1999. It's Daniel Snyder. You know it well because he's been the worst owner in sports in the 24 years he's owned that football team. That once proud franchise, the Washington Redskins, the Hogs, the championships, Doug Williams, Joe Gibbs. Now what you have left behind? Memories of Albert Hainsworth. How did that work out? Horrible free agent signings, not to mention the scandals. Just this past 18 months alone, the horrible reveal of the Commanders' team name when everybody knew who it was the day before. Oh, that Sean Taylor statue, that gimmick, that joke. How about the touchdown celebration of the mascot, the Tutty? That was horrible. You keep getting in your way, time and time again. The best thing you had for your fan base this offseason was hiring them an offensive coordinator. And now the later scandals, financial misconduct, all these things you got going on. Yet you want Roger Goodell in the NFL to look the other way while you negotiate your sale of the team on your terms. It don't work like that. Only person you really got on your side is Jerry Jones, and it's not going to be enough. So go ahead, Daniel Snyder, do the right thing. Sell the team, go on about your business. Don't worry about this no more. The fan base deserves better. You've done a lot to tear this situation down. It's just time to walk away. Don't try to negotiate your own terms. do the right thing, and give the Washington, D.C. natives, give the people inside the Capital Beltway their team back. You can find more contents like this at Bettor Network on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
Check it out. Moose and Keith on Bettor Sports Network.
Sweet 16 tonight. Couple locations, one being Vegas, the other one being the Mecca, Madison Square Garden. Jim Root, Second Chance Points, joins the program now. First time I've had the pleasure of chatting with Jim. I know you've chatted with Keith a number of times. Good morning, Jim. How are you?
I'm great. It's a fine morning here. I'm actually out in Las Vegas. We'll be in person at the West Region Games, so I'm wired. I'm ready for some great live hoops.
Oh, so it's early, a little early for you, 8:30 in the morning. Nice. All right. You had your cup of coffee already? You good to go?
Oh yeah, gotta get up early. I already knocked out a show for our own internal records today. So I'm just getting into the flow of the day now. I'm ready to rock.
So let's discuss the morning then. So you're on the road. Hold. So you're on the road. You did a show already. I know you're like an athletic guy. Did you get a workout in, or like do you wake up and get the workout done in the morning, knowing that you won't get a chance to do it tonight?
Yeah, that's the plan. I haven't gotten to it yet, but got to get down. I'm staying at the link, and it's an okay gym. It does the job. Not bad for being on vacation. So yeah, I'll get that in, knock that out, and have my free time tonight.
Now, how long of a workout are you going? Keith loves to tell us about his workouts, his big sweats late at night as he's preparing for his next day's show. 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, Jim. Now, how big of a workout are you giving us on the road?
This will be a maintenance workout, I like to call it. I'm going to get in, I'm going to check a couple of boxes for about 45 minutes and get a sweat going and then get back out of there.
Yeah, sometimes you just work in I call them like the hotel workout. You just make your quick move around every single thing. You hit every part of your body. Don't really worry much about cardio that day. Maybe you walk on the treadmill or do the elliptical for like 15 minutes and you're out.
Yep, that's it. Spot on right there. That's exactly what I'm aiming for.
There you go, Moose. Now you know.
I know. I gotta clip that. Boys, back at the shop. Can you clip that? And so for my wife, because she was busting my chops this morning that I'm not working out enough or not working out at all, I gotta make sure that I start doing.
Moose, you got to start shadow boxing. I'm telling you.
I just have to just walk. No, I'm gonna just start walking. That's it.
No, Jim.
My wife would like me to walk out of the house, but I'd like to start walking.
Jim, have you ever done shadow boxing?
I have done no boxing. I think if I hit a bag, it would come back and knock me out. So I stay away from it.
So I'm really into it lately. So as a kid, I boxed, but then realized that this face is just way too good looking to get punched in the face. I don't want to mess it up. I just really didn't want to mess this up. So went away from it. But lately, Peloton has these shadow boxing classes. They're awesome. It's a great way to get 20 minutes of cardio and get some of your aggression out also. I think everyone should try them.
I got too much aggression inside of me. So yeah, that sounds like a good move to do. Let it out somehow.
All right, Jim, let's talk about
Moose is like, can we talk hoops, please?
Well, no, I'm gonna before we get into the matchups out in Vegas, and really want to run through all 8 games the next 2 nights with you because you're fantastic and wealth of knowledge and information. Let's start. I want to ask you a personal question because we had Tim Doyle on yesterday, fired a question out there, gave me kind of an answer. I want to ask you a question. Who do you think tonight, Jim, wins tonight of all 4 games, but then loses on Saturday?
I will go with. I'll say Kansas State. I'm riding with Florida Atlantic all the way to the Final Four, so I'm going to go a little bold there. I've believed in the Owls all year, and I think the draw is set up okay for them. I'm going to ride with FAU.
So you like FAU. So you think K-State beats – let's start. Okay, so let's start with the matchups, then we'll get to the one and the sexiest matchup of the night being Gonzaga and UCLA. Let's start with K-State and Michigan State because everybody and their mother, Jim – Keith and I joked around about a little bit in the hour number 1. You go around, everyone's like, you give Izzo 4 days. You give Izzo 4 days. There's no way. How do you not take Michigan State? They're the betting favorite in the game. They're laying anywhere from 1.5 to 2. What about Michigan State, K-State, and why do you like the Wildcats tonight?
I'm just surprised at the line here. I kind of thought K-State would be a slight favorite. My power ratings make them that way. A lot of the analytics sites do that as well. Clearly, there is love for Izzo in the market for them to be flipped over to the favorite side. I just think K-State's got the two best players. Marquise Noel, Keontae Johnson, two guys that could be on pretty much any All-American team, depending on where you look. Jerome Tang, arguably the National Coach of the Year. So I don't feel like Izzo's got this great dominant prep advantage against a coach I really respect. I know he's in his first year at K-State, but he's engineered a great turnaround there. I'm riding with the Purple Wildcats as a slight dog.
Yeah, we both are in on K-State. We were actually going back and forth on whether or not you take K-State even money on the money line, or do you buy yourself a little safety at -110 at the +1.5. So that's kind of what we were going back and forth. How would you handle that one?
I'm probably going to go money line. I'm not that many games in one. Famous last words, knock on wood here, but I'm going to go with the money line, get rid of a little bit of the juice because I think K-State wins outright.
All right, let's go to the FAU in Tennessee. Let's stay in that same region. You mentioned you like the Owls, right? They're what? I mean, they're 33-3 so far this year. Took care of business and survived the sweat against FDU in the previous round. Tennessee just manhandled Duke. I mean, Jim, I think that's the other thing people were surprised about, the way, they just beat them up. Physical defense, Duke backed down. They blinked. What makes you like FAU tonight against what you would say a very, very physical defensive Tennessee team?
I like that FAU can spread them out and shoot. They're going to have 4 playmakers, scorers on the court at all times, and then a two-headed center monster that is going to alternate taking the beatings from that Tennessee front line. But Tennessee didn't play a lot of teams that could shoot this year. The SEC was the worst three-point shooting team or conference in the entire country. Just no one could really fill it up from deep. The one team that really could was Mizzou, my alma mater, actually. And they were able to beat Tennessee twice because they could spread them out and knock down shots. I think FAU can do that same thing here. Tennessee, while they have the physicality edge, I think FAU can stand up to that maybe better than people are giving them credit for.
Yeah, we're both in on FAU +5, +4.5, whatever your book is giving you. The only thing that would scare me about FAU, and you tell me if this scares you at all. So if you dive into Ken Pom, they're the 30th ranked efficiency team shooting wise, right? But they've shot poorly in the first 2 games, yet they got those wins. So is it a trend that they're maybe not as good of a shooting team as they were during the regular season? Or were those blips on the radar that now they can go past and be the team that they were during the regular season?
I'm going to lean towards blips just because the sample size. I'll take the larger season, but Memphis is a super athletic team. FDU is really fast and flew around, challenged everything. That kind of, Tennessee isn't as fast as FDU, but they're big, athletic. They're going to challenge everything on the perimeter. That's why their 3-point percentage defense is what it is. I just think they haven't seen a lot of teams that can spread it this way with so many different shooters. Like I said, still sticking with FAU there.
All right, let's go out to, you're going to be out in Vegas. Let's start with Arkansas and UConn. 8-4 matchup. The Huskies are sitting anywhere from 3.5 to a 4-point favorite in the game. Hawkins, they are a team that a lot of people have had a healthy respect for, being one of the teams that could potentially, win a national championship. When you look at UConn, have to overcome some Danny Hurley coaching during the course of a game at times. And you smile, Jim, because that's true. Because sometimes he can coach a little bit of a tight game. How about Musselman and Hurley tonight, Arkansas and UConn? What do you think is the deciding factor of who marches on to the Elite Eight?
Man, it's probably who's going to make the mid-range jumpers in that kind of in-between area. I think both teams are going to end up taking a lot of those. Arkansas can't shoot threes, and then on defense, they like to run you off the three-point line. They're not going to let UConn just live out there, sit on the perimeter and chuck them. They're going to make them put them on the ground, 1 or 2 dribbles into that elbow 15-foot area. And if either team can really get going from that range, I got to give the edge to them. I just have a hard time evaluating both these teams because of what you said, some of that Hurley coaching and the Arkansas in-game swings. It feels like they get down like 10 in every tournament game, and they come back and battle back. They did that a bunch last year, did it last round. The in-game swings make me nervous there. I do think this is going to be an inefficient game. I like the under. That's what I'm betting here. Just think both teams can take away what the other offense wants to do. So even if it's a little up-tempo, I still like the under.
All right, so you like the under there. What about the late game at MSJ?
Late game at MSG, at Vegas.
Vegas. My bad.
Yeah.
Vegas. Sorry.
I've like gone in order on these games, and if you throw me off, suddenly I like stop computing, and
that's on me. I owe everybody a laugh. That's on me. I owe everybody a laugh.
Well, Jim, Who do you think pace of play? Because Keith and I were discussing it earlier. When you look at UCLA and Gonzaga, who do you think wins out there? Who do you think it has the guard play to be able to control the tempo of the game?
I trust UCLA more there. And I always think it's easier to slow a running team down than it is to speed a crawling team up. And UCLA's got a senior point guard, Tiger Campbell, that it's like a master of controlling the pace, setting the tempo, not pushing when he doesn't need to. And this UCLA team's faced a very similar system that likes to run 3 times this year. Arizona's coached by a Gonzaga assistant, runs a lot of the same stuff that Gonzaga will. And they slowed them down twice. The third time didn't go as well. But I think they're going to be able to keep this more in the half court. And they need to, considering their injury limitations, UCLA. It needs to be a crawl for them, and they just kind of out-punch Gonzaga in a half court game.
Who would you take in that game?
UCLA, ever so slightly. Worried about the injuries, but I'm going to ride with them, and they're a little more balanced. Gonzaga's just not there defensively.
When do you think, Jim, when do you think the Clark injury comes back to haunt UCLA?
This is about the time that it could. Starting to play really, really elite competition. That West region is just loaded between Gonzaga and then up top, Arkansas, UConn, and Kansas is already out. St. Mary's is already out. It's crazy, but this is about where I think it does. Not last round against Northwestern, but without an elite defender against this awesome offense, it could be a real shortcoming for him there.
All right,
and where do you think? I'm sorry,
go ahead,
one more in the game. UCLA wins. This game is where point-wise. Gonzaga wins. This game is where point-wise.
Oh, if UCLA wins, I bet it's kind of like 70 to 30, or excuse me, 70 to 65 kind of range. And if Gonzaga gets it up to 82 to 76 or something and really gets it to run, that definitely tilts towards Gonzaga, their depth, their scoring options. They want to get it up there.
Styles make fights, and everyone is telling us that San Diego State is the style that can beat Alabama. Alabama's still a 7.5-point favorite. How do you see this one?
Yeah, I kind of buy the style argument. I just think Alabama's too good and capable of playing just about any style. I know a lot of people point to that Oklahoma game where they got slowed down. I just think that was a terrible spot where a team was in the middle of league play, flew to Oklahoma, never really got off the plane, and just got punked right away from the opening tip. I don't think we see that kind of lack of focus. And since Alabama changed their starting lineup at the start of the SEC tournament, they put Javon Quinterly in there, went a little more older, more veteran in the backcourt. They're 5-0 against 5 tournament teams, and they've won every game by at least 19. This is probably their toughest test of that group, but they have been rolling through teams. Haven't even gotten that much from Brandon Miller in this tournament yet, and I think we see him break out again after another 3 days off. So I like Alabama even at that big 7.5 number.
All right, let's stay out in Louisville, in the South region. How about Princeton and Creighton? Battle of 15-6. Creighton sitting as a 9.5-point favorite. The team that started the year in the top 10 battled injuries throughout the course of the season. A lot of one of those teams that if they were in another region outside of Alabama, people might have picked to make it to the Final Four, given how talented they are. What about Creighton and Princeton and the Tigers coming out of the Ivy?
Yeah, this is another one where the dogs got to slow it down. And Princeton did a great job against Mizzou and Arizona, making it a half-court game and battling on the glass against 2 bigger teams. I just think Creighton's a little more comfortable when you slow them down, whereas Arizona and Missouri, they struggle. They just don't like to play that style at all, and they couldn't figure out how to score in the half court. But Creighton's got options there. They've got different playmakers. They can run a lot of different ball screen stuff. Kalkbrenner's a great role man. He dominated that opening round game against NC State. It's going to be a tricky prep. All these Ivy offenses are in the postseason or in the non-conference. It's just not a system that a lot of these high major teams are used to seeing. But I think Creighton can extend there. I'm not betting it. Number felt about right to me, but I do think Creighton kind of keeping their distance and not getting upset in that game.
Speaking of a large number, Houston, 7.5-point favorites. Feels large to me. This feels like we should be betting Miami plus 7.5.
Yeah, I think so too. It's just a number thing for me. I like Houston. Think they're one of the best teams in the country. Like I picked them preseason. They're my champion in my bracket as well. But Miami's guards are too good. They're too efficient of shot makers when they're challenged, and that's what Houston does. You've got to make shots with hands in your face. They're one of the best at contesting jumpers. But Miami can do that. There's slight concern with Wooga Poplar, their third starting guard. He has not practiced this week since getting hurt last weekend. Maybe that takes away a little bit of that shot making, but it's really more about Pack and Wong. I think they can knock down shots, and maybe they get worn down by Houston's interior onslaught, but not enough to get outside that number. I think 7.5, getting that with Miami makes sense.
All right, Jim, let's look over to Xavier in Texas. Second game, nightcap tomorrow night, out in Kansas City. Texas sitting as a 4-point favorite, and they're playing some of their best basketball at the end of the season.
Yeah, they look great. The Big 12 tournament, they didn't have Timmy Allen for a couple games, so they threw Dylan Disu into the starting lineup. And lo and behold, he's been a monster. I guess he was starting before. He's playing bigger minutes now. Last 5 games, 18 points, 9 rebounds from a guy that was averaging maybe half that for a lot of the season. So having suddenly this interior presence on both ends just amps up a team that already was getting great perimeter playmaking from Rice, from Carr, from Tyrese Hunter. And I think Xavier's perimeter defense really got exposed by Kennesaw in the first round. They couldn't keep guys in front off the dribble. Texas is going to take advantage of that. I know Xavier can score with just about anybody, but Texas, I think, can outpace them and has enough defense to shut them down. So I like Texas in that nightcap.
Can't believe we've had you on for 16 minutes and didn't ask, how did your bracket look?
The top half looks great. My Houston over Bama title game's going well. Got Creighton in the Elite Eight. Didn't really worry about losing Arizona there. It gets ugly in the bottom where I had Marquette and my preseason adoring pick of TCU to the Final Four. That one did not last. So let's ignore the bottom, focus on the top. Glass have full perspective.
I love it. I love that.
So right now, Jim, if you had to pick if you look at the 16 that are left, if you had to look at the 4 now that you think punched their ticket for Houston Sunday night, what 4 would you go with?
I'll stick with Alabama for sure, and definitely going to stick with Houston, though Texas is starting to sneak up there. I think UCLA's slow down style, despite the injuries, I'm going to go with them in that really, really challenging West region. And then, like I said, FAU. I'm going to be an owl guy down in the region of kind of. There's a lot of upsets happening down there, but I think FAU finds their way through.
That if FAU gets there, that again goes down. Every once in a while we get the one team where you're like, how did they get there? And that would be crazy.
And I had them losing to Memphis in the opening round.
That was such a tough first round game.
Oh,
those two teams shouldn't have been playing each other.
They really should not have been. Memphis and FAU should not have been playing for it. Jim, I want to ask you one last one on the coaching carousel we've seen here in college basketball before we bid you adieu. Kim English landing at Providence, Ed Cooley at Georgetown, and Patino at St. John's. Impactful here when you look at those 3 programs all in the Big East.
Yeah, I mean, I think what a win for the Big East. Getting Patino in there, and honestly, Ewing, I'm sorry, but it's good to have him gone because Georgetown was just circling the drain with him in charge. English is an interesting hire. It's a big swing for the fences for somebody that hasn't really proved anything yet, but he's beloved by a lot of media people. He's very charismatic. He's going to win the press conference when he's introduced at Providence. You combine that with the coaches that they got last year, Thad Matta, Sean Miller. I think this league is really, really ascending, and it's already pretty high up there considering where it's at in this tournament.
Jim, you're fantastic.
Get that workout in.
Appreciate it.
Get that workout in.
It's time. It's time.
It's time for the workout. Where are you now? What's the best restaurant when you're in Vegas that you're going to be going to? Is there one that you pinpointed here? Made a reservation? Can't wait to hit?
He's going to eat at the arena.
Carbone.
I'll eat at Arena tonight. I do like Monabi Gabi at Paris. I've had a couple of really good meals there, so I'll go to bat for them.
There you go.
Enjoy the games tonight, Jim. We appreciate it. All right, man. You're awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Good stuff.
You got it. Jim Root, Second Chance Points. Check him out. Fantastic. Covering college hoops. I'm a little jealous. I got to be honest with you. He's at his hotel room in Vegas. Looks stylish. Getting ready for a little college hoops tonight.
I was just thinking. We should be trying. I don't know why we're not trying to go to the Sweet 16 tonight at MSG.
Yeah, just no shot.
You're working tonight, right?
I'm working tonight.
I'm not. Should I send a few texts?
Why not?
Try?
You should go.
I should try, right? I'm not. The thing. How much are tickets tonight? I'm not trying to pay a lot of money for.
What do you mean?
How much do you think tickets are tonight?
I have no idea. I can look it up. You want me to see?
I'm trying to get a pass.
I don't know if this stage you can get a pass.
No, right?
No.
I should have thought about this. Yeah. I originally had stuff going on tonight, and I realized during that conversation, I looked quickly. I'm like, I don't think I have anything tonight. Like, I mean, I could just stay home and watch the games, and it'll be fun. And I'll watch with the boys, and Jody will watch a little bit with us also until everyone goes to sleep. Or I could just go.
Here, let's see here. You want to buy 2, right?
I don't know. While you do that, hey, remember, update the Bettor Sports Network app. Be sure to have all the new features we have developed to make your experience the best it can be. Update your Bettor Sports Network app today. I'd probably do 2, I guess.
Cheapest ticket right now is 3 a pop.
No, I'm not doing that.
600.
Yeah, I'm not
in the building. 600.
No, I'm not doing
Section
600.
208. It's beautiful. A little left corner. 300.
Nah.
Let's see. What's the most expensive ticket tonight? Let's see.
Probably. Well, I'm gonna guess like $6,000 a pop.
On
For
StubHub. For 2, it's 3,700
a pop or total.
No, 3,700 each.
Yeah,
3,752 a pop.
No, thank you.
7,500.
Just and where are those seats?
Those are beautiful seats.
Am I on the floor?
In
Is someone sweating on me?
Service, club seats, center court, unrestricted view. I mean, you are literally, I would say, 7 rows from the court.
For 7,500, I want to be on the floor, right?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
And then I got to wear something cool, right? I got like if you do something like that, you have to show out. I have to look good too.
No doubt. You got to wear one of the suits you wear on MLB Network.
Do you go suit or do you go trendy? Like, am I going like
tight pants?
Well, yeah, everything tight with like a jacket, and then like halfway through you take the jacket off, kind of thing, because
are you a big one of those guys that like to wear like the floods, like the pants that come down to just above your ankles?
No.
And then you don't wear socks and you're wearing shoes.
No, I'm a big. I like
pull
socks.
that look off.
I don't. I've thought about it. I actually brought that up to Jody this year. Should I? Because that's like Nate Burleson, one of the like just such a cool dresser, right?
No doubt.
And we're the same age bracket. We're similar builds. He's a little taller than me. So sometimes I look at stuff that he wears, and I'll say to Jody, I'm like, "Can I pull that off?" And most of the time, she goes, "Nope." And I'm like, "Come on!" Like every once in a while, she'll go, "Yeah, I think you could wear that," but usually she'll go, "Nope."
Well, yeah. Well, you'd rather have your wife be honest with you than lie.
Sure, right? Because she could
you to look foolish.
Yeah, I remember the first person at CBS that used to do those pants where like you show the ankles. It was John Schriffen. My first year at Topps. He's got 2 sisters that are really big into fashion. One is like a fashion designer, and one does something else, right? So they would do their fashion stuff for him. So, and I haven't seen Schriff in a while, and now he does play-by-play. So a lot of times you don't even see a lot of the stuff that he does, that he's on camera for. But he was so ahead of the curve. Like he was doing the no sock thing 8 years ago. That wasn't a thing. He was doing the show your, like the pants were too short. Like, are those correct? They're too short thing before anybody else was doing it. Yeah. I still haven't done that. Ratcliffe this year did the no sock thing a bunch of times.
Yeah. I've done the no sock thing in sneakers, and your sneakers eventually just reek.
Yeah, no,
and you have to like throw them away.
Yep.
Like there's a reason socks work.
Yeah. Yeah. They
do you powder your feet?
I don't. Should I?
No.
Okay.
I'm just asking you. No, there's some I know, like Donna's dad powders his feet. The boys sometimes like to put powder on their feet after they take a shower or bath. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just curious if you
your kids bathe? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well, I have a 6-year-old. Yeah. Like a nice warm bath after going to play a hockey game or whatever.
So at 10 years old, Jackson will still do a bath?
Yeah, he'll still do a bath.
That's awesome. Yeah, my kids stopped doing baths. They just do showers now. I feel almost like, dude, you should do a bath. Do a bath while you still have the time to.
Yeah, no doubt. I haven't taken like a legitimate bath, and I can't tell you the last time I took a bath. Like, but I missed the bath time used to be great. Like you'd have your little toys, like a little bubbles.
Yeah.
You'd relax. It was warm. It was just so like peaceful.
Yeah.
You didn't think about anything.
No. I want some peace.
I know.
What?
Peace of
I told you though I started dabbling with meditation, right?
You did, I know.
Yeah.
I had to start dabbling. I had to start dabbling in something. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about.
There are so many ways to take that.
I know.
The broad spectrum that you just left.
That's why I left it open for you.
I gotta dabble in something.
I gotta dabble in something. I know. My buddy looked at me yesterday and was like, listen, you need to like do some deep breaths for yourself and relax. I'm like, okay, I know. It's been a stressful couple weeks.
What is your work schedule is normal tonight?
Yeah, normal. Yep. Yeah.
And you're walking in the door at what time?
Get home at midnight.
How tired are you at midnight?
Oh, tired. Yeah.
You are. Okay. Because I was going to tell you, if you're not exhausted, one of these nights, put a 10-minute Peloton meditation on.
All right.
Try it.
I'll do that. I'm going to do that Friday night.
Do it Friday night. Everyone will be sleeping in your house, right?
Yeah, I'll do that Friday night.
And just do a 10-minute one.
You know what I'm going on with Sharapan today?
Oh, you're doing Bostonian versus the book?
Yes.
Must see. App TV. I love it.
Yeah, there you go. We'll be back with you tomorrow. I'm going to dabble. See you tomorrow.